some way, it's almost like disclosure is just going to be a matter of attrition. We're just going to all go, oh, yeah, you know a story. Oh, yeah, you know a story. You know, okay, you know what's happening. And we all know what's happening. And it's happening.
So you think it's the 100 figures of at some
Sort
point?
of. Something that's sort of getting to be that way. I mean, this is, God, how long ago was this? This was like maybe 7 years ago. I was in a store with some friends. They had a lot of those T-shirts that have, pictures of gray aliens on it. And there were these like 15, 16-year-old kids in there. And just out of curiosity, they were looking at some of the shirts, and I just kind of asked them, like, what do you know about them? They knew everything. Everything. They were like totally on top of all the latest information about UFO reports and graves and all of this stuff. And I was like, okay, the next generation, this is not going to be a surprise. It's just going to wake up in the morning. And it's like, yeah, it's the way it's always been, of course. Ever since, 1969, anybody born after that has always lived in a world where we've been in space. So that's normal for them to think about the idea of space being a place to be and to live, and that beings can come from there.
That reminds me of a question I have about, and this pertains to disclosure, about why disclosure is like taking so long. And one of the things that that I believe to be true is universal law, that we're supposed to know these things. And I call Hollywood a loophole, where they're disclosing, but they're labeling it as entertainment. Right. Can you explain that, how like maybe some of these messages have been sort of convoluted in what they really mean?
Well, again, I think there are different ways that we pick up on the facts that exist, and that especially when someone is behaving creatively and artistically, they're going to pick up on stuff that's in the ethers, and they're going to bring it through in whatever way their imagination deems appropriate. And so we definitely have been getting, whether intentionally or not, feeding us information about the possibility. A lot of times it's displayed negatively, a lot of times it's displayed positively, but again, it's displayed. So the idea itself that ETs exist is not foreign. There's still a lot of questions and fear about, whether they're bad or good, but we're getting through that as well. But nevertheless, it's almost not really a question anymore that there should be ETs, especially now when we have discovered all of these extrasolar planets, thousands and thousands of them. Even mainstream scientists, while they may not believe the ETs can get here, are all pretty much in agreement that it would be sort of ridiculous if there were no ETs on other planets. So we've at least gotten to that point in our collective consciousness. Now, of course, there are subgroups that have different experiences and know that there are ETs here and that it's not a problem for them to get here at all. And they don't think of it as any more difficult than us deciding that we can fly to another country. So that's just the level that they're at in their technology and their awareness of how things work in the universe. And we're slowly getting to that point. There are now actual theories in the scientific community that we do have the ability to circumvent the speed of light. We just don't have the technology. But the math works. Now, I'm not saying we go faster than the speed of light within physical reality. It's literally about taking the fabric of space-time and wrapping the ship in a bubble and moving that bubble of space-time faster than light, because there's no law that says that space-time can't move faster than light. It's only that you can't move faster than light within space-time. But space-time itself can have an infinite speed. So if you're able to actually take a bubble of space-time with you, you can travel as fast as you want. There's no limit there. There's no barrier to that. And it doesn't break the laws of physics at all, as we understand them. So we're getting around those issues bit by bit.
But at the same time, our own consciousness can switch us to another place where that exists anyway.
Well, of course, that's a whole other level of understanding. That's the level Bashar's people are on. but our level of understanding is still very much on the nuts and bolts side of travel, as opposed to the energetic and vibrational side of travel. But, he's given us some hints and some clues and some experiments to actually physically do that demonstrate the vibrational aspect of movement and travel, and how things are all just about reorienting the concept of your location in space and time by changing your frequency to adapt to it. So he has been sort of giving us little breadcrumbs about experiments to do. Some people have started them. Some have taken them a little farther than others. And some of them, despite the fact that he's described these experiments in very detailed ways, haven't done them at all. So to him, that's like, well, I'm giving you this information. If you're really not interested enough to do the experiment, that tells us a lot about how ready you are or aren't to interact with us. Because anything that they share with us in terms of information, they watch very closely what we do with it and what we don't do with it. And that tells them how close we are and how ready we are for contact.
That reminds me a lot of what we were talking yesterday, that like if you go to a party, like a human party, and you want to talk to someone, but they aren't reciprocating and they're not like interested in talking to you, then you probably won't keep talking to them.
Right.
And it's no different. Our other friends, our galactic friends,
Yeah.
if we're not having a positive reciprocation of energy back
What's the
towards
point?
them, what's the point?
They don't do pointless
They
things.
don't want to interact because
They leave us alone to our own devices
Yeah.
because they do have a non-interference directive. That's one of the things that sci-fi writers did pick up on that is real. They can only assist, they can guide, they can't really intervene except in extremely rare circumstances that would affect them too. So they have to let the culture grow. They have to let it be on its own. They have to let it make its own decisions and determinations for itself. They can't really go against that. But they can see if we're willing to go in a new direction by dropping hints and giving information, saying you might want to look at something like this. But if we don't, then we don't, and they'll move on because it's not like they don't have other civilizations to deal with.
right.
We're not the only kid on the block, by far.
Do you think as humans we're kind of children-like?
Yes and no, both. Because we are, in terms of the fact that we have chosen this physical reality to learn things from a new perspective, so we are growing in our understanding like children. At the same time, from the spirit level, Bashar says, you're not kindergartners, you're a graduating master class. Earth is a tough school. It's a very dense reality. You're dealing with issues of negativity and all sorts of limitations. But he says you have to be a very strong soul to have chosen that. So a lot of other civilizations are actually watching us and learning, saying in essence, hey, if they can transform such darkness into light, if they can transform limitation into freedom and negativity into something positive, being in a reality that dense, that tough, and that forgetful, maybe we can too, because we're not as steeped in that kind of density. So Earth is actually teaching other civilizations how to transform things on another level altogether because they just don't have the same degree of density that we do. And if we can do it, they can do it.
How many beings do you think are hanging out here with us on Earth? And
Well, that's a kind of an open-ended question
Yeah.
because it's hard to say how many might just sort of observe and pass through when they don't really have a strong connection. There are, as far as I understand it, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of at least a dozen civilizations that have a strong interest in what's going on here and are actually participating in some way, shape, or form in guiding us and helping us and taking measurements and observations and learning and seeing what's going on here and are very interested in our transformation. That number may be off one way or another, but there are probably many, many more that do pass through, take a look. Maybe we're not their cup of tea and they move on, or, they check in now and then, and see what's happening out of curiosity. But I think there's definitely a core of ETs that is very interested in what's going on here and have been for quite some time, maybe even thousands of years. Because I think a lot of the ancient stories of things like gods and angels and things like that were probably ETs. And it's just been sort of misinterpreted and folded into our mythology, and at this point, it's all just folklore. But I do think some of those stories were probably representative of encounters, and are now part of our mythos, And I think one of the biggest surprises we may have when disclosure happens is to find out, oh, that was actually an extraterrestrial. We'll be told, no, that wasn't just a story, that was really happening, Because it's interesting, one of the things Bashar has been saying for quite some time, and I just recently heard a psychic confirm this independently, is that when open contact does occur, one of the gifts the ETs will be giving to us is a record of our entire history that we have been, a holographic record, literal recordings. Wow. We can watch what happened in ancient Rome. We can watch what happened in Atlantis. We can watch other civilizations that have lived on the earth that we know nothing about. They will literally give us, here's your history. So now you know where you came from and where you're going. So he has said that's one of the gifts they will give us is take a look.
I've heard that before we incarnate, we're kind of flashed this holographic images of things that are on our path for this.
Yeah, we plan
lifetime.
out our path, generally speaking. Yeah.
And I always wonder, is like deja vu, is that when you see that marker
that can
your
be
soul
one of the reasons for deja vu. I actually think there are a few reasons why deja vu as an experience can happen, and that's one of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can suddenly have an awareness, like I said, of broadening your bandwidth and suddenly picking up on, oh, I planned this out, but you know that unconsciously. But then when it actually manifests in physical reality, go, why does this feel so familiar? Because you already know you planned it out and you're connecting to your soul path. Yeah. Another reason that can happen is the idea, like we talked about, of parallel realities, where there's another version of you, so to speak, that is living maybe a slightly different time frame from what you're living, but a very similar life. And so maybe that version is a little ahead of this version, like two programs on television that are slightly, this one started at 9:30, but this one started at 10. So this program's a half an hour ahead of you, right? So you can have another reality that is, another version of you that's experiencing something similar, but they might be a year or two ahead of you. And when you catch up, it's like, oh, I'm picking up on another parallel version of me that has already lived this, but that's why it feels familiar, yet I'm only just experiencing this for the first time. So tapping into your soul path can be one reason. Tapping into a parallel reality that's similar but off track a little bit can be another reason for deja vu, and there might be other reasons as well. But those are, again, side effects of the broadening of our bandwidth, the picking up on other realities.
We did an interview a week ago. Time is really weird, maybe a few weeks ago,
Yes,
where we were talking to someone who channels euphorics. And he said there are like 12-dimensional beings. And he had mentioned that, because I asked about dimensions, like how many dimensions there were. And he said, well, humans want to have these hard and fast rules, but things are fuzzy, kind of. Like, it's not always so. Yeah. Can you comment on how, like, the interpretation we interpret these things as humans?
There are infinite dimensions, but we turn them into compartments as we need to understand them from our point of view. So again, it's kind of like, look at the visible spectrum of light. It's all electromagnetic energy, but we can have red, and that's a certain frequency. And we can have orange and yellow and green and blue and indigo and violet and ultraviolet and infrared below that and X-rays above that. So we've taken what is essentially a continuous stream of electromagnetic energy, a continuum, and we have said, okay, we perceive this particular frequency as this color. That's how we need to relate to that part of the electromagnetic spectrum here in physical reality for our own purposes. While there are different frequencies that represent different dimensions, sometimes the division lines between them might be relatively arbitrary, and we might, from our physical perspective, say, oh, there are 5 dimensions here, or 10 dimensions here, or 12 dimensions here that fit our math and all that. Another reality might say there's 26. Another reality might say there's 33. Another reality might say, no, they're infinite, or they all blend together. It's all one dimension, and you're looking at it from different points of view, and that's what you get. So it's a little bit arbitrary. The other thing is that when people talk about dimension and density, there's a lot of confusion about that. Bashar has sort of likened it to the idea of states and countries. So density is like a state within a country, and you can go from one density to another density in the same dimension, like you can go from one state to another state in the same country. But dimensions are like different countries. That's how we've sort of broken it up.
Okay.
So we are going ostensibly from what most people have called the 3rd density to the 4th density, but it's all happening within the 4th dimension of 3 of space, 1 of time, what we call physical reality. But when we cross into 5th density, we're actually going into the 5th dimension, which is non-physical, which is the spirit realm, and so on and so forth. So density is like a range of frequencies within a dimension. Dimensions are whole other realities altogether. That's how he's likened it anyway, as an analogy, states and countries. And we are tapping into our spirit selves in non-physical 5th or 6th dimensional energy. So the idea is we're going into 4th density, we're 3rd density beings tapping into 5th density energy to create 4th density beings in the middle. So it's a fusion of the idea of our old selves, our future selves, and creating a new present self in a higher frequency of physical reality, which we typically refer to as 4th density physicality.
So recently we went to Bella Instagram meeting, us and Nayo, another team member, meeting against the rock. And we felt very strong. We all had similar meditations and they were very unique. You know, so we were picking up on something. I felt like we were going back and forth in this energy that was there.
Well,
I know you have a lot to
probably also synchronizing with one another too.
It was really surprising, the feelings. I had a feeling that energy moved through my body and it almost like birthed out.
Mm-hmm.
And Nyla had a similar feeling in a she explained it differently, but it was, and we both were like looking at each other like, how did that happen? And then she had the same thing, almost the opposite direction though. It went like this way.
Right.
And Nyla and it went this way. And so we were just like, whoa, that, you know.
Right. Well, again, you're creating your own collective consensus. You're harmonizing and synchronizing with one another, but then you each have your own interpretation of that. But you're experiencing something similar. So, you know, you can create a mini consensus within the larger collective reality, and we all do, because there are people of like mind in this group, people of like mind in this group is different from this group, and so on and so forth. So there are many collectives within the larger collective.
So do you think we were giving ourselves a permission slip because we are at a place that we felt was very special and sacred and energetic,
Absolutely.
and then it allowed us to open up a little more?
Of course, that's what permission slips are. You do something that is a ritual, a technique, an object that allows you to give yourself permission to be more of who you are. And that's how we use them. That's what physical reality is for. It's a reflection. It's a mirror. You know, one of the things that got downloaded to me the other day that actually hasn't even come out specifically in the channelings yet is, if you want to just use the term God, source, whatever you want to call it, God is a mirror. It's a reflection. So whatever we put out is what we get back. So it's just reflecting what we are. It gives us the opportunity to decide whether or not we want to keep reflecting that, because it's unconditional. Just like a mirror unconditionally gives you whatever expressions on your face. It doesn't say, oh, you should be smiling if you're frowning, or you should be frowning if you're smiling. It's totally unconditionally non-judgmental. It just gives you what you put out.
That just
I want to ask one more question about, let's use Bell Rock as an example. When we go to certain locations,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it activates different things. So are we working with the electromagnetic energy of that location?
Well, yeah, Bell Rock is the center of the Sedona vortex, and that's why Bashar's ship is straight above it. So, yeah, it's an electromagnetic phenomenon that amplifies whatever you bring with you into it. That's what a lot of vortices are all about. They're portals, they're vortexes of energy. It's sort of the chakra system of the planet, so to speak. And each one has its own kind of flavor, its own kind of energy as to what you experience when you're in that particular energy center or vortex. So, yeah, whatever you bring, it amplifies, it magnifies, it allows you to work with it a little bit more strongly. And so, if whatever you're attracted to is what will work for you. That's why you're attracted to it. That's the permission slip that's aligned with your belief system. That's why the attraction exists.
So, going back to Bell Rock and Bashar being up there, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Where it was the ship's.
Well, again, he's adding his energy, the energy of his people, to our energy through that vortex to sort of smooth out our transition a little bit, so it's not so bumpy. So they're kind of giving us a little bit of calmness and ease, and whatever we bring into that vortex can be experienced as a transformation that's a little bit easier for us, so it's not so jarring. So they're helping soften our experience a little bit that way too. But he's also basically said, you know, the height of his ship changes according to the energy that they experience of our readiness for contact. So when certain things happen on the earth negatively, his ship goes up. When they happen more positively, his ship comes down. So he's literally acting like a barometer of how ready or not we are for contact to occur. And he's saying there are ships over every major vortex on the planet, sort of, again, gauging and adding their energy and seeing what we do with it. And the closer they come, the more ready we are. The farther they go, the less ready we are. They're literally using our energy as a permission slip to let us decide when are we ready for them to come closer and closer and be here.
It's kind of weird, weirding me out. The energy's like flowing right now because we were there laying back, contacting Bashar, hoping to talk to you. And now here we are, somehow miraculously.
That's the way things happen.
It's like, I feel like it's spinning around right now.
I know. And
What came first?
Get
another
used to it,
thing,
it doesn't matter.
yeah. Another thing that happened when we were there is that every city we tend to go to, when we arrive, there's a lightning storm. It's happened
Yes.
multiple times over and over. Well, we arrived at Bell Rock right when we got there. Lightning started, and it started raining. That's very rare in Sedona for that to happen. And we realized we were the only 3 on Bell Rock for about an hour.
Cool.
There was no one else there. And we called my daughter who channels, she's 8, and we asked her, we did a FaceTime with her, and we said, we're here, and can you tell us what the beings that are here on Earth? And she goes, Mom, they're not on Earth. And we were like, oh. And she goes, they're above you.
We were at Bell Rock.
And we were at, and
like, do you see anything right now?
yeah, we were like, and so then, we hung up the phone and then we did our meditation. And then right after, when we got down off of Bell Rock, is when you responded to her email.
It's all about timing.
It's like, it was
It's all
so,
about timing.
So weird.
like that sort of serendipity and coincidence.
But there is no coincidence. There's
Yeah.
no accidents.
Yeah.
See, synchronicity is physical reality's way of showing you that everything is connected. That's the best it can do, is connect things in timing that are even irrelevant. But that lets you know those things are all one thing. And you're just getting whatever perspective of it you need that helps you move forward It's holographic, so it can give you the perspective you need. It can give you the perspective you need, me the perspective I need, all at the same time, because it's all different facets of the same one thing. Synchronicity is showing us that it's all an orchestration. It's all planned out in a way. You are part of it, whether you know you are or not. Even if something is happening that isn't necessarily real obvious as to why you're part of it, you're there to help someone else be a part of it. So even when, let's say, you're stuck in a traffic jam, you're there for a reason. You don't know what that reason is. You may never know what that reason is. But you're helping someone else. You're forming something that someone needs to experience, and you're willing to be a part of it. And it may have something to do with you. You don't know. Because the orchestration happens on many levels. Because it's not only the orchestration happening in physical reality, there's an orchestration happening with your spirit guides. There's an orchestration happening with your soul family. There's an orchestration happening with your own oversoul and up and up and up. So all of it working together, you don't know exactly why this is happening the way it's happening. But if you flow with it, you just know everything is working. I mean, let's say you're in that traffic jam. How do you know that if you were going 65 miles an hour, you wouldn't have gotten into an accident 5 miles down the road if you hadn't been stuck in this traffic jam? You don't know. You just have to assume that it's working for your timing or it's working for someone else and you're willing to be a part of it. Because on that level, we are willing to support the whole. Even though we may think of ourselves as individuals and, gosh, I really need to get where I'm going. If you're not getting there, no, you don't.
Well, I kind of got that. I got the concept of things are always working out for me. For stereotypes before, but the second part of it, that it could be helping someone else, like
Absolutely.
the 1-2 punch of those two together.
Absolutely.
It was really good.
Because we are a community and we have all agreed to be here at this time. And therefore we are being of service to each other in some way, whether we know how or not.
I noticed that when you put your intention forward that you want to be in service, since January I've been meditating and just asking the universe to place me where I'm most needed.
Exactly.
Because I just have a random skill set of things I can do. So where am I most needed? And it's really nothing about me. It's more about like, how can I help people the most?
Right.
And I feel like once I set that intention, it's like just very clear. All these things happen really perfectly timed and really wonderful.
That's why I say it's all about time.
And I think that intention of putting yourself in service, I think that can help.
Well, that's basically what Bashar means by the first principle of the formula of acting on your passion. You're acting on your passion in service to humanity. Because if you're serving the whole supports you. If you're just serving yourself, you're isolating yourself and cutting yourself off from the support you could be receiving from the whole. So the way it actually works best is to serve others, you get served automatically because you're part of the whole, because you're serving the whole.
So true. I know.
Yeah, that's why true intelligence thinks in terms of whole systems, not in terms of pieces. It thinks in whole systems, and the whole system coordinates all the pieces. If you're trying to work it from one piece at a time, it's just too much for us to handle. There's just too many details. But if you look at it from the whole system, all the details have a place. And when we're working with the structure of the whole, every piece knows exactly where it belongs. And it will come together in perfect timing, because perfect timing is part of a whole system. That's what happens.
It's not always the timing we want.
It's not always the time we want,
Yeah.
but it is always the timing we need.
Yes, yes.
Or it's helping someone else.
And that's still part of the timing.
Yeah.
Because again, it's all about being of service.
And this is kind of a different topic, but you had mentioned timelines, and I just heard something before where you mentioned JFK gave disclosure. Where
In another parallel reality, the idea was,
that story a little bit?
yeah, as we change our present, we also change our past. Because if you are really becoming a different person in the present, from the linear space-time point of view, having become that different person has to make sense linearly. So you have to have had the kind of past that would actually result in you becoming this different person. Therefore, anytime you change in the present, you automatically change the past to be the logical past you would have had to have become this person. Now, this happens on an individual level and it happens on a collective level. So he was saying, whatever you think of as history is the history you're creating now. That would seem to have always been the history because that's what makes sense to who you think you are now. But you don't know that 5 minutes ago, when you were different people, that you didn't have a different history entirely. So what he has said is there is a history that he's aware of where Kennedy revealed the existence of extraterrestrials before humanity was ready for it. And it caused a disaster to happen. And so collectively, we changed our history to be that he did not reveal it, and it is still not revealed, because that's what's protecting us from that disaster in this timeline. It gets a little heady, and it gets a little weird when you start going into these kinds of multidimensional parallel reality what ifs.
Yeah.
But that is a parallel reality that does exist separate from this one. But we've shifted our collective consciousness to this timeline because we didn't want to experience that disaster. So we just took a right turn, and here we are.
It makes me wonder if, like the end of the Mayan calendar in like 2012, like I wonder if that, was a timeline where 2012 was the end.
In some realities, probably, but it usually was more representative of the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new cycle, which it was for us.
Yeah.
And we've gone through other cycles as well. So we're now going into another one. Most recent prediction Bashar made was that somewhere around the end of 26 and the beginning of 2027, there would be some kind of a UFO event that would start to let people know we're not alone. Now, he won't say what it is. He won't describe exactly what that means. But he is saying that's coming up just a couple of years away, where it will shift our thinking about our relationship to the idea of extraterrestrials. But he's not saying what the reason for that experience or event will be yet.
I wonder if a lot of it is like up to us as a group of humans to kind of ripple this knowledge even out and do the work.
Well, it is, because the only time he is willing to make a prediction is when the collective consensus has enough momentum behind something that it's unlikely to change. Because basically he's saying there's no such thing as a prediction of the future. Any prediction that is made is sensing the energy that exists at the time the prediction is made. And if it doesn't change, then yeah, it comes to pass. But knowing about the prediction can change it if you don't want it to happen. And so you take another course. It doesn't mean the original prediction was wrong. It simply means it made itself obsolete by letting you know about it. And then you changed the path. You changed the energy because you didn't prefer that. So the only times he's actually made a prediction is when he says, there's just so much momentum behind this in your collective consciousness that it's not likely to change, or not change very much. Because he did that in 1998 when he predicted that by the end of 2001, there would be a terrorist attack in New York. He said that's just unlikely to change. There's just too much momentum behind it. And again, he said in 2016, referring to the elections in the United States, he said everything's going to change after 2016. I think we can agree that happened.
Yeah.
So now his next one is 26, 27, somewhere in there. Something's going to happen that's going to sort of turn on the light bulb with regard to the existence of extraterrestrials, and things will start being different from that point forward. We're in kind of a humanity reset. Other psychics have talked about this between 2020 and 2050. This 30-year reset where we're really shifting into a completely different perspective of what we can be, of what humanity can be, and where we can be headed. So we're really just at the kind of the beginning of this, but there are definitely events and markers that are going to be happening. The first one of which may be in a couple of years. We'll see. But he hasn't been wrong so far, so we'll see.
Yeah, one of the downloads I've gotten, and sometimes the words are very brief, but is do the work.
Oh yeah,
Just
walk your talk.
Yeah, do the work.
Do the work.
Yeah.
And we hear as we're interviewing other people, like a message that we're getting from different parts of the world is to share the information.
Mhm.
There's no hoarding is, I guess the word I'm looking for could be something else, but hoarding the information or keeping it to ourselves or compartmentalizing it.
Right.
It's sharing like all our experiences, ET sightings, all the stuff we have with each other. And the more, like you said, the more that we share it as a group, we keep just doing this and talking and stuff.
Well,
Collective.
Yeah, it just becomes normal information, you know. It's like I told you, like those
Yeah.
15-year-olds. Oh yeah, we know all about that. But it's normal to them that aliens exist.
Do you think when this event happens, this contact event, do you think at that moment that energy is so strong, well, that our history will change?
I believe it will. Because again, anytime we change, our history changes. It's just that we
But collectively, like the biggest,
Yes.
like map.
well,
Yeah.
to some degree, yes. But again, whether we know that it's changed or not is the issue. We'll just, oh yeah, that's the way it's always been.
Yeah.
That's the way history is in our mind. That's just the way it's always been. Right now, like you brought up the Kennedy thing. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. Everyone knows that's just the way it's always been, even though it may not have been that way before, 5 minutes ago. But that's the way it seems like it's always been, because the concept of history has to make itself seem like that's the way it's always been, or it's not the concept of history.
And also, the history that we're taught is somewhat of programming. You
Yes.
know, because as a young child, you're not you don't have the choice of what to learn so much.
Sure.
You're just kind of given this
Exactly.
information. So,
Right.
can you talk about programming just a little bit?
Well, whatever information you're giving that programs you then does create the history that goes with it. And that's why many people may feel stuck in a certain way, because what they're taught may not contain the tools they need to break out of cycles that they believe are contained in their history. So even if they have had certain experiences that have created trauma within them or difficulty in changing in the way that they would like to, the programming and the ideas they've been fed give them a history that makes it seem difficult to change. That's baked into the way they think about their past, instead of understanding that it's actually baked into the way they think about their present. And they simply haven't been given the tools to know how flexible their present is, and that they can use that flexibility to change the effects of what they consider their past to be. Because every moment is a new moment, and all they're doing is creating over and over and over again the things they are calling events from their past, but are actually recreating in their present over and over again, because they have not been fed the tools they need to make a switch. That's, again, what Bashar and other beings are doing, is giving us new information to reprogram ourselves so we can understand how powerful and how flexible we actually are in the experience we call physical reality, which is our projection after all. So
And Bashar gives us tools to change our belief system.
exactly, because it's the beliefs that perpetuate your experience of physical reality. It's the beliefs that reinforce the idea that this is a solid fact when it's not. So when you can change your belief, you change your experience of physical reality. The beliefs are the blueprint that we build physical reality out of. So you change the blueprint, you change the structure of the house you're living in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can work it that way. So if you really aren't comfortable in the house you're living in, go back to the blueprint and find out what's off kilter. Change the blueprint, rebuild the house. That's the way it works.
Is there a message that Bashar wants to give humanity today? Like anything important to say?
Yes. Well, I mean, the bottom line from his perspective is follow the formula. I've given you an instruction manual. Now, you can do it however you want. It's up to you. It's your life. I'm not going to tell you you should do this or you shouldn't do that. What I'm telling you is this works. It's not a philosophy. It's not an opinion. If you're holding a red rose and I ask you what color is the rose, is it an opinion that you say it's red? No, you're making an observation. What he's giving us as the formula is actually their ability to see the structure of existence and how it actually works and how we're using it to create our physical reality experience. So he's simply saying, look, just like you would use an instruction manual to operate a piece of machinery, here's the instruction manual how to operate the machinery of your physical reality. Don't add any more instructions. Don't take any instructions away. Just follow the instruction manual and the machine will work as advertised to your advantage. Don't follow the instructions. The machine still works, but maybe not to your advantage. You may hurt yourself because you're not following the instruction manual. So it's as simple as that. He says one of the things you kind of have to get past is the idea that it can't be that simple. We are programmed to believe things have to be difficult in order to earn the result. Now, I'm not saying you don't have to do work. I'm not saying you can't face challenges. But don't define the challenges and the work in a negative way. Experience them as creative and fun and learning experiences and growth experiences that give you what you need to be more of who you are. It's the way you approach it and the way you define it that determines how you experience it. So to him, I think that would be the most important message is you're in charge of your reality because the universe is unconditional. And if you say these things are negative, the universe is going to say, okay, they're negative. And you will experience them that way because I support you unconditionally. But likewise, if you say, no, I'm going to approach this from a positive point of view, that doesn't mean you start calling negative things positive things. But you stay in a positive state because you know anything can serve double duty. So even something that was originated from a negative position can still be a learning lesson that you can use in a positive way. And you can go in a positive direction from. So make that choice. So our greatest power is the freedom to choose. Make the choice that you prefer. That's the way you will experience your life. And it will build and snowball from there. So just keep moving in that direction. That's all you have to do. Because again, the universe will support you. Positive, negative, it doesn't make a distinction. It's not going to contradict you. If you want negative experiences, the universe supports it. If you want positive ones, the universe supports it unconditionally. I think a lot of people need to go get a dictionary and look up that word, unconditionally. You're in charge. You're the one that gives life meaning. You're the one that gives it definition. The universe says, whatever you say goes.
Like a mirror.
God is a mirror.
Yeah.
It's a mirror. Wow. What could we personally do like every day to initiate contact? To
Follow the
start
formula.
The formula.
It's all built in. It brings you everything you need, including the experience of connecting to whatever beings are relevant for your life, human or otherwise. It leaves nothing out. It's a complete kit. That's why he gives it to us. Then we don't have to overthink it. We don't have to overcomplicate it. We don't have to ask so many questions. What about this? What about that? What about this? It's all contained in the formula. He is nothing if not efficient. And he's saying this is all you really actually need to answer every single question you have about this stuff. It's all there. It leaves nothing out. Just keep moving forward. Again, whatever needs to happen will happen in perfect timing. And you have to understand, it's not so much always about what you want. It's what you need that will fulfill you. Sometimes your wants and needs can coincide. But very often, our negative ego decides that it should want this and it should want that and everything will be better if we only get what we want. When in fact, everything will be absolutely fine if we get what we truly need. Because what we need is what moves us forward. But that's the whole point.
So it's better like as we accept that, you know, that
It's allowance. We don't have to
Yeah.
make things happen. We just have to allow them to happen. By being who we are, by being of service, by taking action, because action is the language of physical reality. It shows and demonstrates what you believe to be true. And therefore, just keep taking actions in the direction of service and positivity, and everything will acclimate to that. Because that's the structure that you have set out. That's the receptors you have created vibrationally. So only positive things can fill those receptors. Negative things can't. You're creating receptors for certain vibrations by taking certain positive actions. Only positive things can fill those spaces.
Mhm.
Negative things can't. They're not compatible. Just like the cells in the body. Receptors are designed to accept certain things. They're not designed to accept other things. So you cannot experience negative energies coming to you if you're at a certain positive vibrational level. You're just invisible to them.
well, and that goes the same as contacting UFOs,
Absolutely.
aliens,
Absolutely.
and what we're afraid of is our own
Fear.
frequency.
Yeah. What you're afraid of is the things you haven't come to terms with within yourself that exposure to a higher frequency brings to the surface that you're not ready to face. And therefore you go into shock and you go into fear. And again, that's why they stay at arm's length. They don't want to shock us. They want us to calmly come into self-realization with that. Because again, otherwise, what's the point? If they're trying to make contact, they want to make contact with people that are consciously able to make contact. Otherwise, if they just scare us to death, there's no contact.
It's so true.
It really
It's a
is.
great perspective.
Oh my gosh, and this happened to me in Egypt. This woman came up to me and she said, "What?" Like, I guess she sees things, and she's like, "I've never." She's like, "You have so many friends," like, and I was like, "Oh, you see me?" Like,
Yeah.
it was really a nice thing that someone saw
We're connected to us.
yeah, that there's, because I feel it, you know, but it was one of the few times in my like human life that I've had another human
Right.
say something like that.
I know I had somebody do that with me once. There was a psychic, and she didn't know who I was at all, or what I was doing. And she just said, "I just have the most unusual thing to say to you, and it's going to sound really odd." And I said, "Well, that's okay." She said, "It's like you have two brains. You have one that is connected to Earth, and another brain that's connected to the stars, and I don't understand it." I said, "I understand you perfectly."
Yeah. It's nice to be seen sometimes that way,
Right.
because you're like, okay, that totally
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
That's neat.
thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you so much, and
Thank
spending
you.
time with us is really special. We're
My pleasure.
grateful.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah.